PTC Creo Parametric 3.0, Lesson 2, Part 1. In this lesson, we'll bring up a standard part that's available through the browser and built into the PTC product. And when you see the browser window here, this can be open and shut either down in the left-hand corner or up and click on the close icon. We're going to actually use some of the information in here and take a look at it. We're going to start off by looking at the interface, and we have the graphics area that we're going to talk about first. So I'm going to close the browser, and this is the graphics area. So when we do work, it's going to be in here. This is the ribbon on top, and this is the navigation area. There's a variety of tabs that you can work with. Normally you'll have it come up with a tab that shows the folders, and the first thing we're going to do again is we're going to select our working directory. If you have a separate directory, that's okay, you can go to it. The thing you have to remember is that all the parts, drawings, and assemblies must be in the same directory unless you have a management system, a PD, product data management system, that will allow you to cross folders. For the book, please keep everything in one folder, especially lessons 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12, because they all are related to each other. And it causes difficulty if you divide everything into a separate lesson, because you're going to have to then move all those files into one lesson when you do those projects, because you've got parts, you got an assemblies, and you got drawings, and they all are related to each other. They must be in the same folder. So I'm going to go to the folder that I use. You normally will have a folder, or if you're at a school, you'll be assigned a folder that's a protected area just for your work. So the graphics area, the browser, which is embedded, and of course you can use an external browser like IE or Firefox, Chrome, and you can bring in parts from that browser also. This one's an internal browser. You can actually run both of them at the same time. So we have the navigation area, which is over on the left side. Eventually we'll see that it holds the drawing and the layer tree, which we sampled yesterday, or I should say the last lecture. And we have the quick access toolbar, which is at the top here, and we can alter what's in there. And we have the graphics toolbar, which we don't have a part or an object up, so therefore that's not displayed yet. And you've got the file menu here. And again, nothing's really active except for what's available at this time. There's nothing on the screen. There's nothing open. So let's start off by, we'll take a look at some of these other things. These will all come up as we go through the lesson. Basically, we're going to be working with the standard part, and we're going to get that from the browser. This comes with the Creo product. So we're going to go into 3D model space here, and we're going to then click on the standard parts library. We're going to click on the ANSI standard, it's misnamed, and accept the terms at the very bottom, and it'll put us into their library of parts. So a lot of categories. You can try showing all the categories if you want. For our purposes, we are going to just use a T-nut for our example today. So we're going to click on these features, these icons. Obviously, this is a typical external connection, and this may change, even though it's showing like this. So they might change the way it looks a little bit. The items themselves will remain the same, but the actual look of the interface may change. In fact, many times you'll open something up and it'll say Pro Engineer still because it's got the old naming on it. We're going to go in here and we're going to choose a format for the part we want to open up. And you can see here's the ones that you can open directly here. And we're going to go, we've noticed that this one has been a problem. We don't understand why. But select it looks like the exact same thing, but on the very bottom. This means it will open up items all the way from 2.0, Wildfire 2.0, all the way through Creo 3.0. And you can view the 3D model if you want. It depends on how your system is configured. It'll generate the model, excuse me, and it should actually open this up in another window. It takes a few seconds to do it, depending on how complex it is. This is not a real complex one. And click here to view the model. and mine says I have a setup problem. So this says I have to have some sort of a item that I don't have the ActiveX commands set up correctly. If you do, you'll get this and a little bit of a model view, and you can rotate it around and preview it. For our purposes, we're just going to go and download this model. Excuse me. It's going to generate the model, and it says drag this to the window. And you can see it says Pro Engineer, which hasn't been around for a few years really, but there's a lot of companies that still use it, but it's about 5 years out of date. So I'm going to open up this part, and there it is. Now this is also available if you go over to your browser here, open up another window, let's see what we have available here, and you go into the website for the book. cadresources.com. And if you click on the book that you're using, in this case it'll be 3.0, but they all pretty much go to the same thing as far as give the same options, I should say. You'll see that you have an icon up here, and if you put your cursor over the top, click on it, you can actually open up that exact same part. And from here, let's see if it'll drag and drop. It did. So either one, they will look the same. You'll see here, and you'll say, well, where'd the other one go? But it's underneath. So they're both the same thing. Either way, you can get to that part. Sometimes the 3D model space is either down or there's a problem with it. So if you can't get it to work that way, go to the website, and all the parts are there. In fact, I should have showed you maybe. Go back into here, CAD resources. If you'll notice, as we go through the book, all these parts are available. And these are all the ones that are used in the text. In case you can't get them from another source, or maybe these are the only source that we're providing you. In this case here, these particular parts are used in lesson 8, and actually lesson 8, 9, and 12. And they are taken from Carl Lane, but they're also provided here. It makes it a little bit easier to get to than going to a company website sometimes. Either way, you should be able to get your component up on the screen here. So we've opened up our first part, and I think what we'll do is we'll just, excuse me, we'll just change the color of it. I'm going to click on the View tab, go to the Appearance Gallery, and you can select any of the colors that you want. There's colors you want to stay away from. You want to stay away from red and probably green. It's colors that are used on the system itself, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So in this particular case, you can see we've got quite a few choices here. Brushed steel. How about metallic gold? Let's try that one. And again, you can see the little select dialog. You can click OK or a middle mouse button. So that's not too bad of a color. If you select it, you'll see that the edges turn green. So obviously you don't want a green model. So there's things that you got to be careful with as far as your color choices. I double clicked on that this time. So if we go back into here, click on Appearance Gallery, put your cursor over the model icon, right mouse button, and click on Edit. And you'll see that you've got a palette here. I'll click on the color, and we can change this to anything that we wish. You want to stay away from very dark colors no matter what. So I'll just keep this one. And we also have a shading, or a reflection color, I should say. And a lot of times you want to make that pretty bright. How about that? And you can also change some of the elements in here on it. And since it's a standard color that's that's got the highlighting and everything else, there's less. This is actually a metal color subclass. And we're going to click on Close. Let me rotate this around. So if you use your middle mouse button, rotate the model. If If you use your middle mouse button and roll, you'll be able to zoom in and out. Wherever you put your cursor, that's where it will zoom to. So there's a lot of standard ways to do views, but in reality, most of the time you're just going to use these. If you hold down your control key and your middle mouse button and just go up and down, you'll see that it zooms also. If you hold down your shift key and your middle mouse button, it'll pan around. And we also have our standard views from our graphics menu toolbar. And you'll see this doesn't have very many choices because it was made many years ago before standard views were provided. In this case, you'd have to get the view that you want and then set it up. In this case here, it's only giving us a few choices because this model was created a long time ago. I'm not sure if we can get to go to Tools and go to Model Information. Let's see. Not getting anything pop up very fast. There we go. So, tells us some information about it. You actually can give a feature list of what was made. And if you do individual features, click on something, it'll just select that feature as the information for that feature. All of this can also be found by just clicking on a feature. Let's say the hole, and the information will come up. So let's turn that off. Let's go back over to the view. Let's go to the model. And let's say we click on the hole. Oh, it's still going back to that other one. Let's try clicking on the hole here, right mouse button, and go into just edit. Select edit, and you can see only the dimensions show up. So you've got a dimension here, a little hard to see, don't worry about it. And then you've got the 5, which is the most important one. So with edit, if you double click on this, and let's make it 4 and hit enter. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have made 0.4. And then click on your left mouse button twice, and it will regenerate and make the hole a smaller size. Now, if I double click on that hole, it'll come up with a dimension. So you can click on a feature, let's say the chamfer, right mouse button, and you can go and get the information or the editable dimensions. So in this case here, doesn't want to let us change that one. It might be set by the company. So let's try a few other things. Now, if you get your part way over here, you can also put your cursor anywhere you want and then zoom in with your middle mouse button. You can, like I said, rotate it around. You can also hit Control D at any time, and it centers and puts it in standard orientation. If you wanted this to be in isometric, we would have to go over to our File Options and click on Model Display, and as the default, select isometric. And no, because we don't want this to be the standard. The reason why you don't want to see this all the time in isometric is, for instance, watch if I start a new part. This is what the diadatum planes will look like. A little harder to work with. So the trimetric is where you start, and then later, after you get at least one feature, one model, if you're in the assembly mode, then that's what you'd want to do, is you want to switch it over and have a nicer view, which is a little more realistic looking, which is the isometric. Now, besides just double clicking, you can double click on any of these and you can see the features, the dimensions come up. But besides that, we could also click on a feature in the model tree or over here. And by the way, if you look, it says, this says a protrusion. When we were doing lesson 1, everything was an extrusion. There's really no difference between the two terms. Old parts before Creo, the Pro Engineer ones, will all have protrusions, not extrusion. It's just a name. If you want to change that name, by the way, you could just click twice and type in something else. Then I change it into Extrude. Right mouse button, let's go into Edit Definition. And now in this case, this is going back into the feature creation, not just the size. So in this case, yes, we can change the size of something. But right mouse button, edit the internal sketch. Or same thing, placement, edit. And it goes back into the original sketch. And if I go to the 2D sketch view, a little easier to see. And yes, I can drag these in, or I could type in new dimensions. Now, I'm making changes to the model. And the model itself, how do I know what's being referenced after this first feature? I don't. It's just like going back and changing the color of your grandmother's hair. Well, everything afterwards might get affected. So give a check here. And now when I give another check, we'll see whether or not I destroyed one of the other features. Well, I did not. I made it bigger, but the hole and everything still fit in it. And again, I'll go Control D. At any point, you can go Control S or to save it and follow the steps in the book. That's very important. Okay, this is kind of interesting here. What's going on is I have my first window, and I actually shut the first window part off, and you can't close the first window. So then I opened the second window, and I accidentally kept this one. So for instance, if I decided to close this one right now and make this one full and open up what I have in session, let's preview it. There's my part. So now you'll see I only have one window. It's a good thing, especially depending on your system's capability. It's good to have only one window. Now, there's a variety of things we could take a look at here. You can save, like normal save. You can save a copy. You can save a backup is when you're changing folders and you want the same name. Save a copy, you can change the name. Obviously, you have your printer. Close your window. Close your window. It does not take the part out of session. It's still there. You just don't see it. And we've got a variety of other things. Here under Manage File, you can rename. You can delete old versions. Remember I mentioned in the first lecture, if you've saved 25 times, you have 25 versions of that part or model object. Therefore, sometimes you want to go in there and get rid of the old ones. You can delete all of them, and that's very dangerous because it really does mean you're deleting everything. Under Prepare, you've got a variety of things. One of them is model properties, and we'll go into this quite often at some point. But you can see we can go into material, and we could actually take a material and assign it to the model. And again, we'll go into that more later. If we click on the Tools tab and we ask for the model information again, now we're going to see that we have a material file name. So it put FE60 on here. So it attached the information to the part. You're not just building a 3D model, you're building a part that has information built into it. Now let's go over and look at some of the choices here. We mentioned this yesterday. Whoa, that's kind of cute, but you wouldn't want to work in that. And let's go to shading with edges. That's a good one to work in. And then you can try these other ones. And again, in general, if you've got colors on your model, you're going to get kind of a faded out. If you didn't have any of these colors, if you turned off all the colors, you'd get a model and you'd see the edges better. But you don't usually work in wireframe. You're normally going to work in either shading or in shaded with edges. And again, with your middle mouse button, you can rotate this around. Now let's go down. We did do a little bit of editing of the color. We talked about the file functions a little bit, not too much. And now we have the help files. We come up over here and we click on question mark. It'll go into the help files. Basically, it opens up an external browser, whichever one you have. Let's see what we're getting here. So it looks like mine's going into Firefox. And their online help is linked to this. Seems like it's taking a little while. Find answers. So Here's your help, and you can see, for instance, we're doing part modeling, and if you wanted to know about part modeling, here's the overview. How about patterning? I'll just pick on one of them. And you can see this is all built in. In general, there is some cases where there's examples, and sometimes they help, sometimes they don't. The PTC help has gotten much better over the years, but and especially now that it's built into a browser, an external browser. Now, if you're looking for a command, I'm going to shut this off. So, for instance, there's a command search. It's very helpful, especially if you're going from a Pro Engineer environment to Creo. Where is all the command? What did they do with the commands? So I'm going to type in shade, and by doing that, you can see I have some choices. And by putting my cursor over the top, it'll show where the word shade shows up as a command option. And can you see this is in the View tab, and it's temporary shade. So on the View tab, temporary shade. Okay, we've already got it shaded, so it's what it's doing is it's turning off the datum planes. And while we're here, let's turn the datum tags back on. They're automatically off when you create a part. And let's check to see what else. It looks like everything is on. And you can see that's the same thing as going up into the View tab. So in your graphics toolbar, you can turn these on and off, or you can go to the View tab and turn things on and off. So that's the command locator. And we did cover the view displays as far as the different types of displays that you can do. And you should practice this. Also practice using your middle mouse button and your mouse button in conjunction with Control and Shift. Get proficient with it. There's a lot of older commands. You got rotate here, but if you hold your Shift key down, there's pan. If you hold this one down, it is zoom, which is a control key. But what if you just hold the control key down and then you go horizontally? Well, you can rotate about an axis point. So there are times you might want to do that. If you hold down your control key and you go up and down, or your Shift key, that's zoom, but if you go this way, it's rotate. So this is Control middle mouse button, but moving your cursor horizontally. So in the View tab here, if you look at this, here's our standard orientation. That's the same thing as going Control D. Previous, it'll go back to the previous one, obviously. Saved orientations, this normally will have a long list, top, front, back, bottom, right, left, plus standard orientation and default orientation. The difference between these two we'll cover later probably. It's not a big deal. Default means that you can actually set a new orientation that'll be the default, rather than the standard and the default being the same. That's all that means. So click on this one here. It's got a variety of other things that we'll discover later. Obviously, these are the same thing that you can get in your graphics toolbar. So if you don't want to have to go all the way over to your tab, remember, when you're working, the tab you've got active is what the commands are that can be initiated at that point. Okay? So you have to move sometimes between tabs in order to accomplish tasks. You can't just stay on one tab. It frustrates people because they don't realize they have to change the tab in order to have those tools available. And at the same time, they do something and then they want to do another thing and they forget to change the tab. The other thing to take a look at is on the very right hand of the corner of the screen, there are some filters. So this is set to the smart filter right now. This means that when you put your cursor over something, it's smart enough to know that there's different options. If you only want, for instance, datums to be able to be selected, and you put that as the filter, then the only thing that your cursor will highlight or pre-select is the datums. That's it. Problem is, sometimes you forget to turn these off. And you go, well, why isn't it selecting something? Well, it's because you didn't put smart back on. We'll put the smart one back on. Now let's see what else is available here. System display. So if we go into File and we go into Options, we've got the environmental settings. We've got System. Now this is where, if you take a look, you can actually go in and you can change all these colors. Now when you do that, you got to be a little bit careful. For instance, the background you want to change. You can also change it standard. You can go, okay, I want this. Nope, didn't change it to anything. Let's see what happened here. Environment. I meant to do that one. Now, I personally don't like to work with that, but other people like it better. So you can change these, and these are standard. This is the default. And you can customize it also and save it. But in every case, if you change something, it may affect how you see it on the screen in conjunction with the color choices you have for your model. So you got to be a little careful. No big deal. Don't make it too weird looking. It's hard to work with. And if you have somebody you're working with, like a coworker, having a screen that's too customized is not a good idea. So those are our color options. I'm going to turn that one off. So your system display, you can customize. Best to do that later. We talked about the information tools already. And these, we mentioned the model tree because we did change the name of the protrusion to Extrude. You can go through all these. For instance, if we click on the hole tool and we edit the definition of that, we go right back into the hole tool itself, and we can actually see how it is created. And I don't know if you see this very easily, but there's dimensions 0 and 0. This is a poor design here. In reality, this should be brought to a line as the option. And now those 0 dimensions. How often, you're not going to change the position of that hole. You want to lock it in, so you align it. You don't give it a distance. Middle mouse button to finish it. And again, here's another situation. It's kind of odd. They made a chamfer on the top, and they made a chamfer on the bottom. Well, those really should have been combined into one. So if, for instance, I decide to delete this one, okay. Oh, there was a relation on that. Okay, I think I'll leave that alone. I'm going to undo it. You'll see we do have undo capabilities up here. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because if I go into Tools, I'm going to click on Parameters, you can see that they built into this model some values. And we won't cover it very much, but just to let you know, there's also a relation. It says D12 equals chamfer, so they actually put a name in there. The name of that particular feature is chamfer. So there's things that they did at the company to build in their information. So if you go and you alter things, sometimes you can break that connection to the information and it'll be deleted, and you have to decide whether or not that's what you want. Now, if I click on the main feature here, right mouse button, edit definition, the reason why you would want to go all the way back, right mouse button, edit definition, go all the way back to the sketch is because let's say you want to make a change in the sketch, not just the name of the size. You can always double click on these even in the model and change these sizes. But let's say you wanted to do something different. Let's say right mouse button, let's, I think I'll put a circle in here. Middle mouse button. Now by doing that, these are crossing, so it's going to say this isn't a valid section. So I'm just going to quickly go up here and delete something. I'm going to delete those entities, and when I click middle mouse button, it shades it. That means it's an acceptable section and it will extrude. Now what happens here? All right, now here's my extrude, but what happened? Kind of funny. I put a protrusion on the top, and where the hole is, then we got a problem now, right? Because I covered up the hole with that particular feature. So I went back and I altered the parent, and it then kind of screwed up where the child is of that particular parent feature. So that's what happens when I go back in and I actually want to make a complete design change. I might want to do that, but you got to be careful a little bit because it may affect the rest of the model. In that case, it did, obviously, because I put an arc shape here, and therefore the flat where this counterbore started wasn't there anymore, where the countersink and the hole. Let's see what else we have here. So we were working directly on the model. And the last thing we'll cover in this portion of it is something, it depends. This is more like a product development tool. We can go to flexible modeling. And I'm going to say, no, I just want to start working. And I don't use this too often because it's in some cases non-parametric. So the changes you make to the model are a little bit more complex, a little bit more difficult to make changes to. So I'm just going to click on Move. I want to show you the capability, though. I think I'll take that back. I'm going to pre-select this face. Now I've got more choices. So in Move here, I now have my 3D dragger, and I can drag it bigger. I can actually, well, that one didn't work good. Let's do this. Back, you can see. Let's see if I can get anything else. Okay, how about that one? So I can actually change that surface. But if you look at the model tree now, it's a move command. It's not an actual, I moved the face, but it's not an actual feature in that sense. So if I clicked on it, right mouse button, information, it just says it's the original extrude, but it really isn't in the sense that I changed it. I actually altered that face using a flexible modeling technique. And again, you won't be using that in the book very often. There's a couple places that I have you do it. Now, if you're doing this for me in my classroom or for your instructor, you have to ask whether or not the alterations you made in this model are going to be the ones that are for checking and grading. Because if I go back over here to the File command, I can save this, but I also can save as, and let's go save, let's see, which one do we want here? Let's go save as, save a copy, and you literally can go down to the very bottom here, and you can create a zip file, and when you click OK, it'll zip the file, and then you can actually email it. You can actually email it directly from the interface here, or you can attach it to a email of your own. The parts are not that complex, so they're not going to be large parts to email. If you have a complex assembly, that's different. So go back over one more time and see whether or not there's anything else I want to cover. I think the last portion of this is user interface customizing, and we won't talk about that in this portion. And we'll stop with the productivity. We'll start with the productivity enhancements on the next lecture. So this ends lecture for lesson 2, part 1.